So first of all, I want to say that a home knitting machine is not what factories use to make the ready-wear that most of you are wearing. This is much more like a home sewing machine that you might have at home. Although there are other kinds, I'm going to tell you about my Brother 260, which is very typical of the Japanese-made knitting machines that were common from the 1960s to the 1990s. This is a totally mechanical machine. A knitting machine, this one has 110 needles. Each one has a latch hook that holds one loop of the knitting. And then toward the back of the machine, you can see the butts, which are the little pieces that stick up that the machine uses to push the needles around, make them do what you want. This picture shows what you would see the machine doing if the carriage were invisible. The needles come out towards you. That pushes the loop of knitting behind the latch. Then it moves back and grabs the new yarn, pulls it through, and the stitch falls off. So now I'm going to walk you through how I made a little stockinette sweater. First, I cast on with waste yarn, that's the yellow. Then I changed to my real yarn, I knit straight up to the armholes. Then I needed to bind off a few stitches for the armholes, so I'm using a hand tool, a hand latch hook, to pull the loops through each other. I hang the last loop back on the machine, and off I go. Then, after that, I needed to make some decreases for the armhole curve. So here I'm moving 3 stitches, 1 needle to the right. That gives me 1 needle that has 2 stitches on it, that's my decrease. And it's 3 stitches from the edge, so I'm making a fully fashioned decrease. If you want to make a decrease near the edge like this, it's fast and easy, it doesn't take a lot of time. If you want to make a decrease in the middle for princess seam decreases, something like that, you're going to have to move every stitch between there and the edge. That takes too long. Then a couple of rows later, I wanted to split for the V-neck, so I had to hold half of the stitches. I just stick it onto a circular hand knitting needle. I knit one side, then I go back and knit the other side. Then since I want to do a 3-needle bind off at the shoulder, I put more waste yarn at the top to take it off of the machine. This is what the finished front looks like. It took about 30 minutes to knit. The back takes less. Now I want to show you some of the other things besides stockinette that this machine can do pretty automatically. You'll see here that there are 2 different needle positions. Some of the needles are further forward than others. This means that the machine can treat them differently, for example, laying in different yarns. This creates stranded 2-color knitting. Now, you might ask, how did those needles get into those positions? Well, you can put them there with your fingers, but you might make mistakes. A better way is a punch card. This machine takes a 24-stitch punch card. So your stitch repeat can be 24 or any factor of 24, and the machine will propagate that across all the needles that you're using. The punch cards can be connected in a loop, and the loop can be any size. So your row repeat can be anything you want it to be. Now, besides from 2-color knitting, this machine can also lay a loop over the needle without knitting it. This creates what machine knitters call tuck stitch, or hand knitters call brioche. Again, you tell the machine which needles do which with the punch card. You can also put a ribbing attachment onto this machine. That's the second set of needles that's facing the first one. Because it's facing the other way, it pulls the new yarn through the loops from the other direction, making a purl stitch. Here's a ribber making seamless stockinette tubes. See the gap in the middle? This is going to be a tube. You can make a tube of any size you want. You can also increase and decrease within the tube, which you can't do on a circular sock machine. Last, I'm going to talk about a couple of techniques that take more work, but are also possible. One is lace. For every hole in your lace, you have to move stitches. If you're doing overall, it can be a lot of work. The last one is cables. Again, if you take stitches off, cross them, and rehang them, you can do cables. Although by machine, you are limited to fairly small ones like the 2x2s that I have here. So the last I'd like to say that these are things that I've made on my machine. I'll be outside afterwards. If anybody is interested, I'm planning on giving some classes at Fiber Camp, and I'd love people to tell me what specific topics they're interested in. Thanks.